SRS Podcast. I'm the host today, Jeff Mullin, and this is a special podcast for me. This is my last podcast as the chair of the podcast committee, and it's a special honor to interview one of my favorite people in SRS, Dr. Gregory Mundis. He will be talking today about his award for the 2025 Walter Blount Humanitarian Award. So first of all, Greg, welcome, and second, congratulations on the awards. Well deserved.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Appreciate it.
So I guess for our listeners out there, I'm sure many people know who you are, but just in case there's somebody out there who doesn't, give us a little background on yourself, who you are, and sort of how we got here.
Sure. So again, my name's Greg. I currently work at the Scripps Clinic in San Diego, and I've been in that practice for about 10 years, and before that I was part of a private practice. We just slowly transitioned to the Scripps Clinic in 2014. I have a spinal deformity practice there, and treat both kids and adults. I'm pretty blessed to be there. I have amazing partners. I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I have amazing partners that really allow for a lot of this work to happen.
So I guess let's just jump right in. Tell us about that work. So this award was for your great efforts going internationally through many different countries and delivering surgery to patients in need internationally and or educating other surgeons?
Yeah, so I think over time as the story has developed, it started out mainly as going and just serving for usually a week at a time, seeing patients in clinic and then operating throughout the week. And I would say probably the first maybe 7 or 8 years out of fellowship is a little bit haphazard, I'd say. I worked with several different organizations that I was kind of routinely going on these trips with. But I definitely felt that one thing that lacked was a structure in a lot of these trips. That's when I sort of found Global Spine Outreach through Dr. Akbarnia, who introduced me to Tony Ranella.
Who was another previous Blount Award winner.
Both of them, actually, yeah.
Maybe to step back a little bit also, your personal story I think is very fascinating with your upbringing, and I think maybe that played a role in your desire to go international.
Yeah, without question. It's always fun how you reflect back on your life and you realize, oh man, that was really awesome. And as you lived it, you probably didn't quite realize it, But I grew up at the age of 2.5, I moved to Salzburg, Austria, and grew up in a missionary family. And we served overseas until, at least I was there until I moved back to the U.S. When I was 18. I was in Vienna for the last about 10 years of our time in Austria. But, service has always been like part of the DNA of our family. It's kind of like literally what my parents lived to do, And so I think is a very natural sort of thing. Like I just knew right off the bat that I wanted to be involved in that.
Speaking of families, I think it's a large ask of our partners and families to come to these meetings and be away. It's even a bit larger ask for you to go internationally here. So I guess your wife, I want to get a little shout out here and thank her for
oh my gosh, yeah. Well, ironically, I think she's part of the whole thing. So she's a physician assistant by trade, so she's got a very strong medical background, of course. And early on, we even said that we wanted our family to be a part of it. So in other words, not something that Dad goes and does, but rather something that like our Mundis clan does, And so we've been on numerous trips together as a full family, and then more recently, I've had the extraordinary pleasure of being able to take my 2 oldest kids with me on separate trips. And my oldest has actually been, I think, on 3 now, and is involved in some of the academic parts of that effort, and helping with logistics and administrative stuff. So it's been fun because sometimes you go and you disconnect, but for me, actually, it was the opposite. I got to go and connect, and that makes these sort of experiences really, really special because it's definitely shaped who they are as people and kind of what they're pursuing in their careers.
For a lot of listeners, they haven't had these life experiences or a parent help them along the way to get this exposure. If somebody's out there contemplating, hey, I want to get involved and help out, how would you advise that the best way to sort of dip your toe in the water versus just to rip the Band-Aid off and go all in?
Sure. Probably the first thing is this concept of humanitarian. I think we all sort of live it out, Jeff. And I think it's a bit of a mindset. How do you perceive yourself going to work? How do you perceive yourself around the families at the soccer games or the football games or whatever else you're a part of? And I think if your perception is to kind of get to know people and to learn and grow, and you do that, all of a sudden, like what you do in your own clinic actually changes, right? Like I get 25 opportunities to meet people, and it goes from being the penalty box, like we sometimes laugh about, to being like, man, this is actually a pretty special job where we get to like interact with like 25 like new people every day in the office. So I would say the first thing to do is a little bit of a mental game. It's a little bit of a mind shift where you say, like, even my daily job is something where I'm giving back. And then comes that little piece where you got to like, flip the switch and actually go over the bridge and say like, hey, maybe I can take some of these skills that I have and share them overseas with people that are maybe in need. And I would say having a mentor to do that with, I think, is really important. So connecting with people that you relate with, maybe other people that do this type of work, and then trying to partner up with them so that when you go on a trip, it's a little bit more natural, And that way you're also spending a week with someone that you actually really enjoy and want to get to know. The secret sauce of it all, though, is when you go, like, all of a sudden you have 16 new, like, best friends. Like, so you don't realize it when you go. It's like all of a sudden, like, after like the first 3 hours that you're there, all of a sudden you like get to know so many people, and the team just gels almost automatically. You come from all walks of life, all over the country, and then you're together for a week, and all of a sudden it turns into something pretty magical. So the main thing is actually taking that step and setting something up and just doing it. And I will say that's probably the biggest barrier to entry.
So assuming they overcome that barrier and want to get involved, what's the logistics for? Like, how far out are you planning? How do you decide where you're going to go?
Yeah, so Global Spine Outreach, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's run by a gal named Melissa Hicks. She's absolutely the bomb. We basically set these trips up twice a year per site. So we have 4 sites right now, so it ends up happening about 8 times a year. And the cadence is pretty regular, and we try to time it so that year after year, the weeks of the month where those trips happen are pretty well set in stone. And then I would say, like, from a volunteer standpoint, especially from the surgeon side of things, like usually 6 to 9 months ahead of time is when we do it. Now, if a surgeon's like interested in like doing Cali, Columbia, in October, then and they know that a year ahead of time because they want to plan a year ahead of time, that's fine. Like, we don't mind that at all. The main thing is the commitment piece, because like once you commit to it, don't back out, because if you back out 2 weeks ahead of time, that means I'm getting a phone call. But the main thing there is like really just committing to the process and then digging into it. But yeah, we 6 to 8 months, something like that, is pretty typical.
So for getting listeners, it'd be Melissa Hicks from the Global Spine.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Melissa.
So now, if somebody volunteers to go down, can you walk us through what a typical week would be like? Is it always different, or are there some expectations you can have what you'd be able to do for a week down there?
Yeah, great question, Jeff. Like, we have really nice structure to it. So it is nice because we can kind of predict the days when you go. So what a standard week would typically look like is that you're going to fly out on a Saturday. Let's say we're going to Monterrey, Mexico, for instance. We'll fly out on a Saturday. We'll get the whole team together, and when we land, usually the Saturday evening, we're putting together we call goodie bags for the kids. And so we'll just get together. Everyone sort of brings like fun stuff, whether it's healthy lollipops and candy, or toothbrushes, or like little toys. But we put like these little goodie bags together for the kids for the week, and then have a dinner. Sunday is usually a clinic where we are going to do all our pre-ops, and so we have all the patients come in that are that are at least indicated for the week for surgery, and we like to go through all those cases together at the very beginning of the week. That way, if there's any hurdles, obstacles, things that we need to order ahead of time, scans, imaging, clearances, anesthesia support, everything's happening right then and there. It's a really rich environment too. It's nice that it happens on a Sunday because a lot of the doctors that are helping us out from, like, say, from Mexico, they're all present, and it's a super rich, like, educational environment. Once we indicate, those kids will have a conference that kind of goes over all the cases, and then we'll set the schedule for the week. And so then we have Monday through Friday in the operating room. We run 2 ORs typically. Usually we have one room running 2 cases and another one running one just bigger one. And then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, typically at sometime in the afternoon, we'll start another clinic. And that's when we see patients that are there for follow-up. And our follow-up rates are insane, so we have a lot of kids that come back. And then we also see some of the new patients that are being indicated for the next trip. And so that happens on those 3 days after surgery. And then Thursday, Friday are just mainly operative days. We do like to build in something fun at the end. So typically on Fridays, we like to have a half day of surgery and then like a half day of like just going and doing something local in the area that would be fun to get out. And then cultural experience, something like that, exactly. And then Saturday, go back home.
So just to elaborate a little more, there are doctors down there helping you keep the cycle going. So tell us about those sort of local hosts, if you will.
Yeah, so like a lot of people say like, hey, what are the critical elements to making something happen? And I will tell you, number 1, 2, and 3 on the list is the surgeons on the ground. Those are like the real humanitarians, the real warriors that are there, like, because they have to do a ton of work. I mean, think about someone coming to your practice, operating on 15 kids, and then saying, "Peace out, we'll see you later." You know, like these guys like are doing the work, right? And so we leave, and there's still patients in the hospital, still patients that need follow-up. What if infections happen? What if complications happen? Who are they being managed by? And so each patient is then assigned to a surgeon that then is responsible in their private clinics to continue following that patient. So, but yeah, having those surgeons there is like, you know, they are absolutely critical, and these guys they're really good surgeons, and they're just fine-tuning their skills. Yeah.
And over the years, have you seen an evolution of you go down year after year, they're learning things and improving their ability to take care of these patients by themselves?
Absolutely. You know, like probably the best model that we've studied is Colombia. When Tony first started going there in the early 2000s, the number of spinal deformity surgery being done at the hospital was like in the single digits. And then over the course of 13 years, we now have, you know, they're routinely doing a couple hundred a year. So like seeing them go from being, you know, mainly operating on degenerative spinal pathologies to now like having really very comprehensive spine practices where they're treating both adults and kids with deformities has been a huge learning curve that we see in all the different sites as well.
In addition to all the great technical skills and knowledge you bring with you, what are things you bring down there that they need?
Yeah, so like one of the great things that we get to do is partner with industry, so usually each trip is like assigned almost exclusively to one company. So for instance, you know, Medtronic helps us in Colombia, Globus helps us in Brazil, and formerly NuVasive, now Globus also help us in Monterrey and Chihuahua, and so. Having them be partners is awesome because like we get to bring the implants down, and that's one of the main barriers to actually executing the operations because implants in most countries are covered by patients, so the patients have to pay for their implants, and then the surgeons can use them, and so it's an interesting exchange because most systems, especially private health insurance companies, they don't pay for the implants themselves. The patients have to. Now, the government does fund some of that, but then you have to use sort of the government-subsidized implants, and then it's very restricted on the cases that can be done with it. And we don't really want to touch those because we want to let the surgeons be able to use those when we're not there so they can keep doing those cases. So huge, you know, thanks to industry for allowing us to bring like the screws and rods and all the instruments down there to do the cases that we need to do because without that, it really wouldn't happen at all. Second thing is having like neurophysiologists. We monitor every case. We don't believe that we should operate substandard in any of these locations, and so we feel like spinal deformity surgery should happen at the highest level. And having neurophysiology is part of that. We actually bring residents and fellows with us as well. We have administrative support, and again, we have the reps that come in with the companies. The cool thing for the reps is they get to actually scrub in and like they're literally handing you the screws and you know, so it's actually kind of cool for them as well.
So that's a really, I think, a great opportunity there to stress these sort of industry partnerships we have and can benefit from patients directly there in addition to all the support they give us at the SRS.
Absolutely.
I think we're kind of running out of time here right now, so I'm going to, for the first time in my life, I'm going to recite a poem only because it's Greg Mundis. So I was researching Walter Blount before this podcast, and he actually wrote a poem I found online. So by Dr. Blount, said, "A crooked back, a winsome face, a little girl, an awesome brace, but time goes by, the child grows tall, you hardly see the curve at all. The aches and pains no longer count, her life was touched." So I think, Greg, you've touched many lives, so thank you for all you've done.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Appreciate it. And thanks to the Scoliosis Research Society for making all this possible. You guys are the backbone of our educational arm and the care that we get to provide to our kids. So if you're not members of the SRS, sign up now. Best organization in the world. Thank you.